Mr. Hafiz Muhammad is very good friend of mine and very nice human being as a person also. He is expert information security professional in Qatar. He's working as an information security officer in Dar al Shaq, which is our peninsula newspaper. We are getting all the feeds about COVID-19 and everything is he's managing the security for us. And his expertise lies in information technology, cloud infrastructure, information security, project management, with multiple certification like CISSP, PMP, ITIL, MS Cloud, ISO, lead auditor, so on. So I'm not going to take too much time. His topic of presentation is ensuring the cloud security with zero trust. So stage is your Mr. Hafiz.
Thank you so very much.
Please go ahead.
My name is Hafiz.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
No, your sound is voice is very low. Please speak louder or change the mic.
Is this okay now?
No, it's very low.
Okay, let me just change the mouse.
Or you can remove the mic and you can use the computer.
Is this okay now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay, fine. So I hope you can clearly hear me now. Yeah. Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
Mr. Hafiz.
Yeah. Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum to all. Hope you all are okay in this pandemic situation. All can hear me good?
Yes,
Okay.
if you can increase little bit, is better, I think.
Okay. Fine. I hope this is clear now.
Yes, better. Please go ahead.
Okay. I exclusively thankful to you for giving this opportunity, and let me share my thoughts on the subject. And also, I'm thankful to the audience for managing their time to be a part of this session. I'm very excited to share my knowledge about the subject. And before proceeding further, I just want to share why we have to have the zero trust security model applied on premises or in the cloud. So let's just discuss with the problems with the traditional security approach. Uh, till now, we were having, or most of the companies still using the traditional approach on one single parameter, where the major focus was only on the entrance of the infrastructure that was our firewall. Maintaining the high levels of security from cyber threat was very much focused on ensuring the security of boundaries. Those were based on firewalls, branches, those were connected through VPNs and having DMCs for published server. This was working very well, and everyone was happy with this. And this was the golden age when the lifeblood of the organization, which was over data, as Mr. Sheets rightly said, that this is now basically we have to change our trends to be a data centric approach, because data is moving from inside to outside. Anyhow, let me come back to the point. And this was the golden age when the lifeblood of the organization was residing almost exclusively within the physical boundaries and under control of organization's own IT department. At that time, the common belief was that whatever is inside, that is trusted, whether this is your employee devices or any other asset with whichever is connected with the infrastructure, and outsiders are untrusted. So in this way, we were only the security was only focusing on parameters, like how they can prevent the network from intrusions, malware, phishing, or denial of service, or any other zero-day attacks. But the internal was still softer. There was no proper security implementation. It was sometime we are using the devices with the default credentials, and without sometime patches are not updated. So it was easy for attackers or somehow hard, or that once if they are in, they are able to manage or move in between many devices without any problem, without any problem. So like but everything was working fine, then why we have to change this security postures? Actually there was some challenges what we were facing with those infrastructure when especially we introduced this part, like we moved out from our internal security things to outside, like users are starting accessing the infrastructure through VPN with their own devices. Those were most of the time untrusted, like their mobiles, their own laptops and other stuff. So with because of this all challenges, we or researcher found something like we should have to change our strategy so we could have more better control on our infrastructure, and also especially for the data what we are having inside. So zero trust model. So at this point, I just want to explain a little what exactly the zero trust model, how this will help us to overcome the challenges what we were having with the traditional security. The main theme of zero trust model is that first of all, we have to change the belief of auto trust on anything and everything which is inside the boundaries, and untrusted those who are outside. This is the first emphasis by the zero trust model, that we have to have change our philosophy of thinking, how we are treating our users, how we are treating our resources. And uh, there is one quote which is truly express the meaning of this whole concept behind zero trust model. That is, I trust no one, not even myself, because this model emphasizes on that everything should be verified prior granting the access. Security leaders strongly recommend the adoption of zero trust model, whatever the size of the company, because it is very flexible to adjust and could be tailored according to security need of the corporations. And in previous years, it is observed that most of the organization in the world, they adopted or warmly welcomed zero trust in their organization to secure their infrastructure, whether this is on premise or inside the cloud. Especially after Google created and implemented their own version of zero trust and give it a name of Beyond Crop. So if you see here in the picture, like you will find that there are basically six pillars of zero trust model. And for achieving the ultimate security of our data, that is basically at the end of all, that is basically the base of everything, that we have to control the activities, life cycle and everything of our users, devices, networks, applications, monitoring. We have to monitor all the activities whatever performed by these four pillars, and ultimately we have to implement something which could automate and help us orchestrate the things automatically instead of any user or human intervention. If you see here, that whole zero trust model revolve around the data, which is ultimately lifeline of corporation. According to zero trust, security is or should be on zero priority job, because prior it was thinking that in the business that there are many other things which was prioritized, like how those should be treated. But now, because most of the business depend on information collected, gathered and processed by their systems, and it was never before. In present time, losing data sometimes bring companies to bankrupt or out of business. It could also consider the violation of local regulation and could drag seniors to the court of law, or hefty penalties. So in this session, we will have a look of how Zero Trust help in rectifying the security threat and help business in improving their security postures. So before proceeding further, I just want to ask if there is any question that could be answered, and then I will move forward.
Please proceed, Mr. Hafiz. We still don't have any question.
Okay, fine. So after having the understanding with the zero trust model, let's move towards how we can implement this one into our infrastructure. Like the implementation strategy, fortunately building a zero trust architecture is much simpler than it appears to be. Like this is the common understanding of the customer when I visited to them while my previous job. They were hesitant about listening about zero trust, and they are saying that this might be complicated, or this might be having reaction from the users, or might create some more complications inside the systems. Hello, hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it visible, Hafiz, Mr. Hafiz?
Okay, fine.
Visible and audible both. Please go
Right.
ahead. Continue.
Okay, so what happened basically to convince the customer, uh, we just assure them zero trust is nothing change in your infrastructure, but might be some, because zero trust is a reinforcement of the existing infrastructure. It does not require a complete reframing of the technology already in place. Rather, it can be deployed in phase by utilizing the technologies and tools that are already available with the organization, or some of the tools what we might have to purchase to meet the requirement of zero trust. That's totally depend on the criticality and threat to the workload and requirement of the organization or industry. While working with consultant uh, in a firm, I got the opportunity to convince customer for this architecture and its implementation, especially in cloud. And we draw a strategy which helped us a lot in planning and implementation of the model, and reward us with satisfactory customers. So let me share with you that how this will work and how we can apply into our own environments to get the result and make it more secure than before. So this strategy basically we divided into 5 parts. First is the identity, how we can identify all the resources inside the organization. Then define. In definition, we define the scope, we define the categories, in which categories what categories we should be having for our own organization, and what category should be would be having how much security. And then we will move forward to implementation. In this implementation phase, basically we introduce some technologies, whether this is by use of existing infrastructure and resources, or just introduction of new. And then we go for monitoring. Definitely after the implementation, we have to ensure how the infrastructure is working. This will not only after the implementation, but also on regular basis to monitor all the activities happening inside the infrastructure, whether this is the user is coming from outside for connectivity or inside activities. And then last, we have to have automate or orchestrate over security activities. Basically, this could be used for other activities also, but today's topic is related to security, so that's why I will say that we have to we can use this for security purposes. So one by one, I will go through with all the phases, and then we will see how successfully we can implement it. So the first uh, phase of this strategies or this implementation is to identify all the resources what we are having. It is said that protection require visibility. Visibility of resources is very critical for implementation of any security control whatever you are having, and same with zero trust. It's vital to have clearly defined list of users, workload, tool, devices, and network infrastructure. Establishing an ongoing discovery And inventory process should be the first step in planning of zero trust implementation and maintenance. It is used because based on the experience what we are having with the customer, it is observed that most of the time organization are severely like in asset management. It would be too many inventories or no inventory at all. Creating and maintain an active inventory of all resources across the company realm greatly reduce the time needed to identify an anomaly in the network and maintain the security of same. Additionally, once identified, assets should be tracked throughout their life cycle until disposed to ensure no data is leaked. So one by one, we will go through with all the resources, whatever usually we have in our infrastructure, and then we will see how, what exactly we need for identify stage, so we could move to the next stage. So first, let's talk about data. Data is basically the lifeline of the company. This is very crucial for the companies, and nowadays every company around the globe or country or regulation is very conscious about the data, whether this is moving or this is reside inside the infrastructure only, or this is in rest or in motion. Whatever the state is, it should consider to be secure. So identify what company is generating, collecting, and storing in term of data. This is the first requirement so we could to implement the zero trust model successfully. How that data is stored, how long that data is stored, and where it is stored, how we are ensuring the security of this data, what mechanism we have applied for, and what is the retention period of data. And then we will move towards, after having all the questions and implementing all the data what we are collecting from different resources, we move towards workload. Like, we should be having to have a clearly defined list required to be generated about the applications or services provisioned by the organization to internal or external entities. What is the scope of those application or services? How critical that service or application is? What would be the impact of outage of that application or services? As in last presentation, he rightly said that you cannot apply the security just like we have to implement the security and we have to go ahead with that. Actually, we have to identify what exactly critical and sensitive resources we are having, and then we have to decide what kind of controls we have to implement and what would be the level of controls we have to apply for that. Whether we have to do for one control is enough for that asset, or we have to use the layered approach. And then we move to see what tools available with us. There should be a list of tools configured inside organization to manage, monitor resource of the resources, or provide some kind of services to the user. What services is offered by that specific tool? Is that tool is integrated with other application, and how frequently tools are monitored, managed, and updated. And then the next part, which where we have to get the list, that is the devices. How many devices belong to the organization? This could be point of sale equipment, servers, IoT devices, medical equipment, or SCADA, workstation, or mobile devices, whether this is belong to the company or the users, partner, or customer are occasionally or periodically access the infrastructure with these devices, purpose of those devices, and then how critical those devices are for the business. What would be the impact if they are off? How business will suffer the outage of the device. Suppose if we are having a device which is like a laptop, which is having very critical data stored inside it, and we haven't encrypted it, and by case it is snatched or stolen by some thief, how critical information reside inside, and how this will impact on the repute of the organization if that data be leaked. Are those devices connected all the time through local or connected by the cloud? and configuration of the devices, how those devices are configured, how those configurations are managed, how frequently we review those configurations, and user. And the last, we will see user. Users, no doubt, users are critical assets of the organization, but this is, with security point of view, this is also the weakest part too. So we have to see who are the users we are having, whether this is insider, whether these are contractor, or these are partner. What kind of resources they require to access, what kind of privileges they are having, how they are accessing our infrastructure, and why and what time they require to have access over resources, what is the location they are accessing from, and how we are managing the privileges of the user, how frequently we review our privileges. And then next is network infrastructure. Basically, in this part, we see what exactly the topology we are maintaining. Because the thing is this, if in current time, we are just having a simple topology, like we are having VLANs for our data center, and then remaining could be connected without VLANs. And even if they are connected through VLANs, the security is not enough to segregate these VLANs each other. So as I explained before, that if once attacker comes inside, this is easier for him to move in between devices to devices and hold their footprint for longer. And then we have to see how networks are connected to branches or DR site or headquarter if you are in branch, how network is connected with other services or network or partners or cloud, whether we are in hybrid or we are in on-premise only, what security measures have already been in place, and how infrastructure is monitored, whether this is automatic or manual, and how incident been responded. So, is there any question till now? Hello? Hello?
Please continue, Mr. Hafiz.
Okay. So, the next part of this strategy is how we have to define the requirement. Like, definitely, after identifying all the resources, we have to define the policies, we have to define our scope, we have to categorize our resources, we have to define the communication flow, how the data is traveling in between the systems. We have to define or redefine our infrastructure, and we have to define our policy. Once this been done, after deciding the appropriate policies are defined and implemented accordingly, the policies will provide footprint to implementer on how to deal with assets of different category, because every security control requires some price to be paid, whether in financial terms, in a way of buying some solution or product, or compromising time or efforts by the users or resources. To protect critical assets, mitigation strategies are prioritized and implemented to ensure the highest value assets have the most comprehensive security. Actions including putting appropriate configuration control, training, and defense in places. Often protection for critical assets also provide protection for other assets within the enterprise. These assets should be protected and monitored. So let's talk about the determined scope. While determining scope, we have to see how much security required to be in place based on organization's information security policies, business or industry requirement, applicable domestic or international law, and criticality of resources. And then we have to categorize the resources what we have listed in the previous activity. This categories basically help us prioritize the implementation of security, because as I said that in zero trust, this is not necessary we will go in one shot and implement the full solution. Basically, we can go phase by phase, like the more sensitive and critical assets should be taken care first, and then in a row. And then we have to see the communication flow. Now it's easy for after identification of resources and infrastructure, it is easy for security team to understand the flow of the data, how data is being moved from source to destination. This is the time to document how specific resources will connect with your information and how they are enforced to interact with it. This definition will support designer by providing valuable context to ensure security controls should be implemented for security, not hindrance to business and users. And then we have to define the infrastructure. Actually, in this phase, we basically have to restructure or just make some changes in the infrastructure so we could easily accommodate the zero trust model inside it. And then define the policy. So the before proceeding to the implementation, we have to have the clearly understanding or clearly defined policies. Like in these policies, we have to answer a few of the questions. Like one, who should be accessing the resources, which we can get the details, the list what we have created in our previous activity. What application is being used to access a resource inside the product? What user are being used being or accessing the resources from inside the premise or from the cloud? When is the resource being accessed? Like we should be having that time frame so we could ensure this will help us in identity and access management part. Where is the destination of the request coming from outside? Why this user is trying to access these resources within this time or within this workload? How users are accessing this specific workload? So in this phase, we basically this all phase is also documentation. We just have to review all the documentation related to our scope, our categories, our communication flow, and define infrastructure. Basically, this definition will help us when we will implementing the zero trust model. So I will move to the next stage, implementation. So in implementation, basically we have to have a look into basically at this till this point we have defined our identity identify our assets, we have classified our asset, we have defined our policies, we have defined or redefined our infrastructure. Now it's time to have all these documented stuff into action. uh, Now we will see what technology is available to help us in protecting our infrastructure and ultimately the data of our organization. So let's talk about the data protection. Data is the real value for the organization, and all security implementations revolve around to protect this lifeline of every company. It's required to have granular security control because it is accessed by the different objects, different subjects from different locations and different endpoints. Those could be application connected through API, webhooks, users through workstation, mobile devices from inside corporate network or outside world, and anytime they require. Data states always in one of the state in its life cycle, and every state required different mechanism to be implemented, whether data is in motion or data is in rest or data is in process. Uh, so to secure the data, we use different technologies like usually we use encryption and tokenization. When encryption, data encryption and tokenization both help in the protection of data against risks such as data exfiltration and authorized access of data. Let's have a brief look into both technologies to understand the difference between strengths of both, and it will help you to use one of them according to your application design. Encryption is a technology. Let me just have a little overview. I'm sure you all are having best understanding with the encryption, but I just want to have like a few words about it. Encryption is a technology that uses key and nouns to temporarily alter data and render it to unreadable format. Decryption, when we require to read this data for legit purposes, we have to decrypt it. Decrypt function required to be applied if data required to be readable. This required to have relevant keys which we use for encryption. So we are having basically two type of encryption, like first is symmetric and other one is asymmetric, and both required to decrypt, both use keys to decrypt it. And the other hand, we are having tokenization. Tokenization basically does not encrypt or decrypt the information, but it swap the original data with random, non-assertive, irrelevant information, which is having no meaning at their own, and original data is stored securely at its original location. However, encryption has some drawbacks, especially when compared with tokenization. So, the key difference between encryption and tokenization is, in case of encryption, content decrypt and share with a user as original, but tokenization, original content always remain hidden from the user, even authorized user. So let's have a look about how we can use this tokenization and what would be the scenarios where tokenization and encryption could be used. Tokenization basically is ideal for structured data like security social number, credit card number, and other financial informations. And encryption is good for unstructured data like databases and file etc. And at the last, to securing our data, we use DLP, data loss prevention. So it is a strategy for making sure that end user do not send sensitive or share sensitive information or critical information outside the corporate network. With the help of policies we have created on our define phase, we configure the rules of controlling confidential and sensitive information movement by authorized personnel. So they cannot accidentally or maliciously communicate data outside organization or with unauthorized user, but as per defined policies for them. Is there any question? Hello?
Yes, we have one question
Yes, please.
from Mr. Ravdeep.
Mm-hmm.
As it was this is on the zero trust model is upcoming.
Uh-huh.
So, the all VPNs, access, and everything is going to fed in future.
Mm-hmm.
Company will be start using the zero trust network access technology or solutions,
It's,
and these solutions need authenticate.
mm-hmm.
Okay, both the remote device and role-based context aware
Yes.
access to the users. So the question here is, so there is any technology or solution available in the market to authenticate both device and users before allowing role-based or context-aware access?
Okay. For this, I really want to tell you that actually I just going step by step. Your question will be answered in the same implementation phase, but after one slide, because the next slide what I'm having, that is basically covering identity and access management, and later there will be network, like how the how zero trust ensure that people are using different connectivity scheme, whether this is VPN or SDP, how they will connect and what could be the features we will be having in those technologies. So if you allow me, then I can continue with this
Yeah, please go
next
ahead.
slide,
Please go.
and afterward I will give you the answer of this. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
In the next part, we will see how identity and access could be managed. First of all, before applying anything or introducing anything to our infrastructure, the identities should be managed properly. Identity should be effectively managed in their whole life cycle from creation till removal. So there should not be any breach or incident happen because of the orphan identities. Like most of the time this has happened that companies, as in the last presentation he rightly said that most of the time we, for convenience, we create the identities inside Active Directory and just leave it as is after even there is no use of it. So uh, we always have to ensure that identities should be having only rights and permission required to be performed, assigned tasks, no less, no more, periodic audit, so we could see whether the identities are having the same rights what we assign to them, and with the current state, if that identity required that rights or not. If not, then we have to rethink, because sometimes what happen, people are moving from one department to another department, and when they are transferring from one department to another department, their previous rights not been removed. So this is basically happen as a privilege creep. Like one user who is working with one company for last 10 years, they would be having plenty of rights which are not being removed when he was promoted or he was moved from different department to department. So the zero trust basically emphasize on it that when the identities should be having need to know and least privileges to perform their activities or the task what they assign to, and the privileged users should be managed properly and on regular intervals. Even uh, the interval should be very shorter than the regular identities we have created inside our system. So the next technique what we will use to ensure that only the authorized users having access to our infrastructure and no one other than can access. Like this is a very common knowledge nowadays that password is failed to provide us the security what we are expecting or what we were expecting from it. Like this is always a weakest authentication mechanism because people set password which they can easily remember, and on the other hand it is also easy for attacker to guess or break by using different technologies like brute force, dictionary attack, or social engineering. So application access available from outside corporate network made this more vulnerable to have one-factor authentication. To overcome this vulnerability, multi-factor authentication come into the picture, in which user have to prove himself by usage of two or more different access factor. And then we can also see context based access. Basically context based, how we can ensure the access of different uh, entities, like from where they are accessing, what is the IP address of that entity, what is the location. If in this way, if something happened with the identity, if identity being compromised, suppose one person lose his password, then it is not possible that one time he is sitting in Doha and the other time immediately he is sitting some other part of the world within minutes. So in this way, the identity and access management mechanism can see, and then they can block or they can ask for the more authentication mechanism to prove the user that he is himself, no other imposter is there. And then single sign-on. Single sign-on basically is a very revolutionary technology which come into the picture and provide the convenience, like which let user to use one identity and log into all related services to the organization. But this also having the vulnerability or challenges with is uh, like if that single username and password or identity being compromised, then the access what the real user was having, the same access with one credentials, hacker can be able to access also. So, but the good thing is this, if we are applying our identity management system properly and we have having the proper monitoring, then we can immediately control the traffic. We can immediately uh, see that if something happened with our identity, and we can block it or we can ask go for the further verification. And the same thing with the sorry, can I hold for a moment?
Yes, please. No problem.
Okay, so API access to connect so many devices and application with each other. never be easy and possible without having APIs. As with other tools, which both benefit, also introduce challenges or vulnerabilities. It's similar the case with APIs also. Before APIs, this was very hard to integrate different systems with each other. Sometimes we require to connect them physically, and then we have to do the other configuration on a very deep level. But with the help of APIs, we can control better. We can ensure the security by ensuring the access of APIs, and we can also control what information should be shared from one system to another at what level. And then the last one is continuous authentication. The process of authentication, as we know, it has remained largely static. Like we can, whether we use multi-factor authentication or we add single sign-on, this is basically the static. Once user is uh, access is granted, this remain inside till the time he is using the resources. There was no mechanism that we can monitor whether this is the legit user or not. The once authentication granted, then it is legit for the system for whole the time the user is or the that identity using the systems. So with the help of continuous authentication, the user provide a system with their credentials at the time of access. The system match it against the database of user. Then the system basically regularly check on regular interval to verify and authenticate the user is legit, the session is not get by imposter or someone. So after the verification, continuous authentication can help an organization to protect itself from session imposter who try to take over session that are open even after employee is done using them. Because sometimes what happened, the user was leave their session open by just simply disconnecting the browser or their internet connection. But definitely this session is having the expiry period. Before that, session will remain active. So some imposters take the advantage of this thing and take over the session. So with the help of continuous authentication and authorization process, we ensure that the person or the identity which being logged in is the same person which is authorized to have this identity or access. So the next part is network segmentation. Here you will get the answer of that VPN question what you asked to me. Basically, Zero Trust suggests that the network should be micro-segmented. Before, it was the practice that we believe in the security of perimeters only. But with the help of micro-segmentation, we can microsegmentation and set up multiple junctions to inspect and identify malicious, untrusted, and unauthorized traffic on the way prior it hit to the target. This will not only help in to block the threats but also contain and mitigate. Microsegmentation is a security technique which allows us to logically divide the data center into multiple security segments till workload level. As we are having everything as a code in the cloud computing, it is easy to enable micro-segmentation in cloud than on premises, because in the because of having the code, then everything is based on software that we can tweak it and we can manage it according to the requirement instead of on premise to introduce more devices and other stuff. Micro-segmentation would be used to secure every single workload separately and make these more resistant to the attacks. If you see the picture here, that here you will find the comparison between traditional approach and application level micro segmentation. If you see here in the traditional, we are only having one firewall which is connected us through the outside world of internet. But if you see in the data center perimeter with the application level micro segmentation, you will see every single VM is having different configuration of firewall, individually managed, or we can see distributed firewall with it. So So the microsegmentation is basically configured every single host individually apart from the parameter, and it reflected as a distributed firewall. Segmentation at granular level make infrastructure more secure to handle penetrated situation because attacker has to compromise every single system uh, to access on it. Because before, what was happening, that if once attacker is inside, he just have to bypass one firewall, and then he is able to access the internal workload or infrastructure, and then he could move from one system to another. But this is with the microsegmentation, the case is totally different. Now, to have the access, attacker has to bypass every single system to gain access. And then let's move to uh, connectivity. How we can connect our infrastructure from outside in. Like prior, it was we are using VPN technology from quite long. It was delivering results, but with changes in trend, this also because of rapid changes and more granular security visibility. It doesn't provide better control and threat inspection capability because it was just providing the connection between uh, network or the user or between networks. It was more focusing on the threat outside in, like it create the tunnel and then user cannot bypass that, the attackers cannot bypass the tunnel if we are using the IPsec VPN technology. But with the change, like now we are in the cloud age, software defined parameter provide the same experience what user were having with the VPN, but it enable access to resources what user is authorized for only. Like if the user is connected through this SDP, software defined parameter, that is a kind of VPN, then he can only access the resources what we have make him authorized. So I will stop here now. If you please repeat your question so I could cover the answer of this question in this phase. Hello.
I think you already answered the question, but I
Mhm.
have other question for you, if
Okay.
you allow me to ask.
Okay, if that is different, let me finish this STP. I'm sure that will clear more understanding with the SDP, what we are having with it and what benefit it is giving to us.
Thank you, Mr. Hafiz, but we have already, 1 or 2 minutes remaining. So please, we like to close this by next
Okay,
5 to 10 minutes max.
sure. Okay, fine. So we can ensure this security of our infrastructure. Like we can instead of VPN, we will go for software defined parameters. Like it provide us zero trust level and leave privileges because user can only access whatever is authorized to him, and it work on with mutual TLS using provided key. Like we use for this connectivity, we use security certificate which authenticate both user and server also. So there are no port required to be open. So for spoofing or hacking, we can use the same web ports whatever we already have opened, and then it could be easily integrated with Active Directory or SAML. And then the next is the bastion votes to ensure more security of our infrastructure. Instead of enabling our workload direct to the internet, we use bastion vote. So this is also called the jumping server. So like our technical or system team connected with this through bastion vote, and afterward they can move the internal infrastructure whatever we have implemented inside the cloud. So workload, like for ensuring the security, we have to have anti-malware. We have to ensure the regular patches. We have to access our workload or infrastructure for vulnerabilities, and we have to remediate it. We should be having the systems where we can ensure that the threats are automatically detected and resolved. We have web firewall, web application firewall, which ensure that all the traffics, whatever moving through our application layer 7, it should be monitored. And in this way, we can avoid that HTTP flooding. We could avoid SQL injection and cross-site scripting sort of attacks. And then devices. We can manage our devices with managed device management, like with the Microsoft, they are having Intune. We can manage our devices like in their lifetime till the disposal of that. In case someone steal or snatch our device, this will be easy for the system administration to remotely manage that device. He can format or he can block that device so that device is no more usable. And then the next will be how we will monitor the whole implementation over, because zero trust also emphasize on that the infrastructure should be visible and analyzed on regular interval or daily, like we have to see how when we can collect log from different solutions what we have implemented on our system, how we can correlate so we can get the real information what we needed in one location, how we can analyze those logs, how we can detect that if there is any unauthorized traffic inside, how we can ensure that there should not be configuration drift in between the uh, disaster recovery site we are having or the backups we are having and the operational infrastructure. And then we can go for fine grind audits to ensure that everything is working fine. And then the last part of this orchestration and automation, basically in this way we have to automate our security response. We have to see that how we can automate, we can implement the playbook. So the task which was done by SOC team, it should be performed automatically and effectively, because before without this orchestration there was a lot of challenge. There was a lot of notification which was generated by different devices implemented in the infrastructure, and this was not easy for the security team to review and take an action according to the alert. And most of the time it was missed and it could be a reason of a bigger security breach. No integration in SOC tool. There was no integration between SOC tools before, but security automation, orchestration response make it available for us the opportunity to have integration between these tools, so we could see all the happening related to security in one window to take an action. And manual processing of the incident, it could be automated through the help of source solutions. And finally, we will see what benefit zero trust could bring for us. That is data protection, because we are the whole trust model is revolving uh, around the data. So that's why we can ensure that the data should be protected and it should be not have any breach or something, because we are having proper user authentication and identification. And then we are having central and convenient security stack, because before it was having the devices inside which are not integrated or controlled by one single system, but with the help of SOAR security automation, orchestration and response, we can manage all the devices in a central location. And then security with better end user experience with the help of zero security implementation. If we properly identify and we define it properly and implement it, it will no impact on the user and user will be having no hindrance in user using this. And then at the last, if we implemented zero trust model in a very good way, then we can convince our management to move to cloud. So this was the end of the presentation. So if you have any question, then do let me know, I can answer that.
Thank you very much, Hafiz. It was very nice and knowledgeable session, and it is somehow connecting with the Abdul Qadir Sheikh, presentation. So it is like
Yeah.
a flow. We learn something about remote access and work from home scenarios, and then we jump directly to this zero trust. So
Yes.
thank you very much for your session. I have few questions. We have very less time, but I just like to ask very fast.
Okay.
What are the key factors we should consider to ensure successful implementation of zero trust in our organization?
Actually, the key factor of this, if we really have to achieve the success of this, the most important part, as I explained earlier, that we should be having a very clear understanding with our requirement. We should know what exactly the resources what we are having, what exactly the users which will access our services we are having, and second, how the data is flowing between application to the user, or how users are accessing our application. So these are the key factor. If we ensure the clearly resources list and other thing, then I'm sure we can get the we get the result what we are expecting from zero security, because identity and access management and security of data is the most important part.
Thank you very much. I have another question for you. As
Yes.
we already know, the data centric authentication is the heart of zero trust.
Mhm.
So, what are the questions we should ask? While we are selecting a zero trust data centric authentication
Mhm.
vendor.
Actually,
So,
for that, what we have to know that first of all, as a if I am providing you a solution and you are having the I come to your organization and I really want to convince you for the implementation of this, I will ask first how you are generating your data, from where you are collecting, how you are storing it, and then how this is moving in between applications, whether this will remain inside the premises or this is moving outside, whether any other vendor or customer is connecting through connecting to your databases. If they are connecting, how they are connected with your infrastructure, whether they are using VPN or whether they are using APIs, or what technology they are using for access for authentication, like they are using OAuth, they are using SAML, they are using Active Directory. So all these questions should be asked, then on the basis of that we can control the access management, and if we are successfully able to manage the access, then I'm sure we can somehow able to secure our data, because there are definitely other things like we have to encrypt, and we have to see that that data, when it is in motion, it should be encrypted, and when it is stored inside the storage, it should be encrypted at that time.
thank you, Mr. Hafiz. I hope uh, it was a very good session for all of us, and thank you. We like to thank you for being here. And again, we like to thank you all of our audience to being part of this wonderful committee. Uh, we need to create this community, and we need to make it more like this. So, as you know, this is a recurring event. We are like to do this every month. So please submit your papers. If anybody like to present something, please feel free to message us. We are always available in Twitter, Facebook. We are available on WhatsApp group. We are available on Meetup. And please feel free to contact us and submit your talks. If you like to submit, please contribute to the community back whatever we learn. So we will try to make a good and knowledgeable session, and we just like to transfer our knowledge. I hope this COVID-19 will end soon, and we will get chance to meet in person, because I still like to have uh, you know meetups in person where we all drink coffee and chat and learn at the same time and ask the question with each other. Unfortunately, we have this now, and this may be the future for some more time. So thank you very much. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, Sheikh. Thank you, Hafiz, and thank you everybody again. It
Thank you
was
so
very
much.
nice
Thanks a lot.
to have you all. Thank you, dears.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You.